Welcome back to the Finger Wag Podcast. I'm your host, Gideon Hertz. I'm here with Jake Foote. What's up, Jake?
Not much, Gideon. In a pretty darn good mood today.
Absolutely. We are sitting here the morning after a decisive Georgetown victory over the University of Maryland at the University of Maryland, 70-60, and really it wasn't that close. It wasn't a 70-60 game. This was a dominant wire-to-wire win by Georgetown. They never trailed in this game. The outside of the first minute of the game or first couple of minutes, Maryland only got within 5. This was a bit of a beatdown.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was a pretty thorough ass kicking. The tougher team won, the better defensive team won. Georgetown, that is, really stamped their style of play on that game. And I agree with you. It felt more than 10. I know it got a little touch and go at the end there when things tightened up a little bit, but 31 minutes into the game, Maryland had made 4 shots. They hung on for quite some time just on some tic-tac officiating, and they made all their free throws. But I felt like we came into their house and just thoroughly kicked their ass.
Thoroughly. We're going to get into all of it. The big takeaways, the lots of positives that come from this, any questions that we have moving on. Georgetown officially 2-0. Let's start with a game recap. Usually I call this the quick game recap, but there's a lot to mention from this. So I'm going to go through, we'll pause a little bit to reflect on some of these things because I just got done with a rewatch of this, and man, it was a solid effort by this Georgetown team. Really exactly what we wanted to see. I always look at Cooley's kind of first opening set in the first half and second half. He's a guy who likes to run something intentional, and his first play was a little bit of a flex set to get Julius sealed deep in the paint. Gets a great pass from Malik, and Julius finishes, gets fouled, has Payne kind of draped all over him, and finishes anyway. I've got a lot on Julius that I'm excited to get into, but this was a great way to start. Then immediately after that, Mack picks Del Pino in the backcourt. He's a freshman, has started both games with the injuries that Maryland has, and he was not up for this game from the start. Mack picks him in the backcourt, gets fouled immediately, and that's kind of part of, yeah, go ahead.
If I could interrupt just quickly after that, I just take a lot from that one play. Mack's at a different level physically with how he's able to defend. He's able to pick up a guy full court, take the ball off of him on his first move, kind of utilize those long arms to his advantage. Del Pino, he played 2 minutes and they yanked him and he didn't touch the floor again.
Yeah.
But I think that was not only Del Pino, but Darius Adams. Buzz started the 3 freshmen in the backcourt. After 3 minutes, he pulled them all. He went to Rice, Coit, and Watts together. The freshmen on their team were not, Mills played pretty tough, but they were not physically up for it to play against that back.
Yep. Yeah, and that's right in the middle of that 11-0 run that Georgetown starts with. And within that run, we've got 4 layups or dunks from Georgetown, 3 steals in that run. Maryland gets 2 shots total during that 11-0 stretch. 0 offensive rebounds. It was completely dominant. And for me, that was a huge indicator of where Georgetown was at. We'll talk about this, but, it's easy to say, there's a lot of opportunity to swing the game over the course of 40 minutes, but Maryland was behind the 8 ball from the beginning. And I just thought it was a huge error, and maybe there's no way around it, but I thought Buzz's team was not ready to go for this one at all. DHS checks in at 16:50 and gets booed, which I want to pause on because I thought this was ridiculous. What are we booing DHS for? I mean, just first of all, you got to look yourself in the mirror before you start booing college players, and certainly anybody outside of the top of the top. But why are we booing college players to begin with? On top of that, DHS leaves Maryland after 2 years. It just doesn't work out. I realize he was a frustrating player at times, but he leaves after his coach blows up the program, and they're booing him. Did you have as strong a reaction to that as I did?
I mean, maybe you can say that this is a rivalry, or at least a dormant one, and that he's, taking the train down the street to go to what Maryland fans may consider a rival school, which could be traitorous. But in this day and age, it's not like we've played against him. Again, it's not like his old coach is on the adjacent sideline. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. Bad look for Maryland. IA gets 4 early points, including a little fall-away jumper at the end of the shot clock. That was nice. I've really liked how he's looked early in this season. Offense started to stagnate a little bit after that. There was a little less urgency, not getting the to the rim as much. Some of the ball pressure Maryland picked up got into them, and they stopped running pick and roll, particularly when Vince came in. And this is something I want to talk to you about. Vince wants to post a lot, and I think there are opportunities to do that, but I'd much rather him be a screener first. And he
Yeah,
keeps running himself into the post and staying down there. And they're much more successful, I think, when they're running the pick and roll right now.
I agree. When Vince is in there, it's kind of has to be a ball screener and a rim runner where the guards are in charge of creating off the bounce. Now,
Yeah.
when Julius is in there, I like it a lot more when it's played through Julius.
Yeah.
He made a lot of really nice plays, both in the high post and the short post. A couple really nice passes off of little pocket passes that he received in a roll, and the offense just flows a little bit better when our guards aren't pounding the ball into the ground, which,
Yep.
in the Vince minutes yesterday, I think they did at times, especially in the first half when things slowed down for us. The offense didn't have a ton of urgency, and maybe that's personnel. But I do hope that, they kind of get a little creative with how they run sets depending on who's out there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And so then right after that, KJ gets the offensive foul on the one-on-one break with Rice. Kind of got the wind knocked out of him. It was a good call. I think there was some discussion of it online, I guess, but I thought it was a good call. And the reason I pointed out is he wants to get into that Euro step a lot, and it's effective, but also gives you the opportunity as a defender to read that. I think he needs to add sort of a secondary move there or counter to not always go to that right to left Euro step that he wants to. He ended up being fine, but just an interesting note. Then Love checks in. This was a question. My biggest takeaway from Love was his legs don't look good, looks slow laterally. My hope is that he's just coming back from a series of injuries and the legs just aren't there yet. He did make a nice play to grab a loose ball, so he was contributing, but couple of quick fouls just because he couldn't move defensively, and gets a wide open corner three and is way short, which to me just is like the legs aren't there. I'm not sure what his status is, health wise, but it just doesn't look like he's up to speed quite yet.
Yeah, I think then in this non-conference, especially against the minnows, you're going to have to give him a chance to kind of play into shape.
Yeah.
Honestly, given our personnel and the way we want to play, I think he might be just a bench spacer, a guy that comes in and you try to create a couple perimeter shots for him. Because again, he doesn't look all that athletic, especially in the lower half right now. And I really don't think they want to sacrifice anything on the defensive side of the ball. And the real luxury that this team has right now is that when they turn to the bench in Jeremiah, Deshaun, Vince, Fort, these guys are all super strong, athletic freaks, and the opponents really, it's 40 minutes of pressure defensively. I mean, it's kind of a Cooley staple, and I don't think he wants to compromise on that.
Yeah. DHS scores a tough bucket after a little bit of a Maryland push to get the lead back to 9. And this was sort of story of the game for me, that Georgetown always found an answer. And I think, again, they're not a good shooting team, but they've got guys who can step up and make a big shot and can knock one down. And that's a big difference from Georgetown teams in the past. They just got guys who can answer, and that's key. Caleb has 3 fouls, has to sit with 5 minutes left in the half. I thought he had an okay first half. We'll talk about his second half because he was a monster. Fort comes in for him and has a just gigantic block on the run out to
I love
wipe.
him.
Yeah. He was great today. And there's some guys on this team that are just absolutely salivating when they get a chance for a defensive run out to take 2 away at the rim. KJ is always just like stalking, and Fort gets that one.
Yeah,
Monster.
It's remarkable how many block shots they have as a team through both games. I'm I don't have Ken Palm in front of me, but I think it's got to be top 5 in the country already in block rate.
They had 11 yesterday.
Yeah, and then I know they were 4th in the country after the Morgan State game, so they got to be up there. But fun little stat here: Jake Foote has only played 29 possessions defensively thus far. Opponents are 1 for 13 at the rim. It's incredible, and he's got what, 5 blocks? He's played half a game.
They are second in the country in block rate, again, through 2 games, but their block rate is 31%.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the guards do it too. Jeremiah does it on weak side. KJ, of course, Fort. But Julius is holding his own, and Vince is an eraser there too. I'm very happy with how it looks on that end of the floor.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Maryland hits their first 3 with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. Prior to that bucket, 14 of Maryland's 18 points came from the free throw line. They made 2 shots through almost 17 minutes of play in the first half.
Like I said, it was 4 shots through 31. They started the second half 0 for 9. It should have been more than 5 before halftime. It was just they made those 2 3-pointers down the stretch. You should have been shooting technical free throws when Myles Rice threw his shoe at the ball.
We'll talk about that, yeah.
But when they set that defense, they're so hard to score against.
Yeah. So then 1 minute, 45 seconds left. For me, just the wildest sequence of the half for sure. For another block, just a massive block on Payne, who's trying to get to the rim, and he's got absolutely nothing. Then there's it leads to a Mack run out. Vince is sprinting down the floor. Mack takes it himself. I think you got to give the ball to Vince there. He was running hard.
Yeah, I agree.
He misses the layup there, but Fort on the other end gets the rebound falling out of bounds. Vince gets it at the top of the key or closer to half court and elects to drive the ball. And this is where Myles Rice throws the shoe at him, which, as you say, that's a technical, but he threw his shoe at him.
It's crazy. And then what made me mad, not only that wasn't called when I felt like the whistle was a little against us on that stretch, he got the double T in the second half, which he would have been gone.
He would have been gone.
And he scored all their points down the stretch to tighten that game. And if he was gone, it would comfortably win that. And then if he didn't play in the first place, which was the thought leading in, it would have been a massacre.
Yeah. And just a little note, I'm actually a big LaFonso Ellis guy. I like him a lot, but he was definitely in, I would say, early season form at points during this game. His big takeaway on the shoe throwing was savvy veteran play, which I don't know that's not a savvy veteran play. That is a technical foul, illegal.
I think everyone just lost their mind on that play. Mack lost his mind not making the pass. Vince lost his mind dribbling down the lane. Rice lost his mind throwing the shoe.
And Vince ends that with 2 made free throws, which is a story for me so far this year. Vince shooting 3 throws has been really, really good. And LaFonso did point that out. So I appreciate that, LaFonso. It's his second game in. We get it. It's early. They end the half. As you mentioned, Georgetown up 5, probably should have been up more, but 32-27 at the end of the half. And they come out in the second half. And again, I'm looking at that first look, and they go immediately to KJ in the post, and he forces it a little bit there. Didn't love that look, but I like getting KJ some touches in the post for sure. Coming back the other way, Julius has really, really solid defense on Payne, leads to a Mack 3. This is Georgetown's first 3 of the game. A little secondary transition 3 bumps it up to an 11-point lead. Then Mack tries a little bit of a heat check with a really, really deep 3 that goes in and out. But as you said, Maryland starts the second half 0 of 9. They were struggling to get any looks. The defense was absolutely suffocating, particularly with Julius on the floor, which I thought was notable. Is that
it was better with Julius?
Yeah. Then you get the KJ pick 6 that he flushes at this point in the second half, which is about, I think, 6 or 7 minutes in. Maryland is shooting 20% from the floor. I know we keep harping on this, but that is an incredible, incredible defensive performance and number. Mack has a blow by, finishes it with the left to put it up 13. And then for me comes one of the offensive sets of the night. This on the pick and roll, gets it to the short roll to Julius. He makes a great read in that dish to the wing for Caleb for three, wide open in rhythm. Beautiful set, beautiful shot. And it just shows Julius in that short roll is just
really good.
Really good.
The most impressive part of that play for me was the catch. KJ
Yeah.
threw a low bounce pass hard
Yeah.
on the slip pass, or the pocket pass, I should say. And all in one motion, catch, cross-court pass, 3-point shot in rhythm, 3 points. He made another one a couple minutes later, which I'm sure you'll talk about, that leads to a baseline dunk, where the play developed a little slower, so it was a little easier to kind of see it coming and make that play. But that one for the corner swing was really impressive stuff.
Yeah. They push the lead to 17 just through pressure, offensive clicking at that point. They bring in Vince, and Jay Will makes a great high-low pass to him over the top of the defender. He finishes and one. Another really, really nice play. When they space the floor a bit and get bigs moving, the offense has more to it. I think that's the key, is just making sure the spacing is there and then getting their bigs on the move instead of just standing in the post or stagnating. I made this note: through 3/4 of the game, Maryland had 7 made field goals with, as you said, 30 minutes, 7 made field goals. Just ridiculous. 9:45, we get a little bit chippy, a little bit chatty. Jay Will and DHS getting into it with Rice. The double text here that I think good note to point out, that if they rightfully call that first tech on Rice for, again, throwing a shoe, which isn't a question. He threw his shoe at another man. If he gets a tech for that, he's out. This is a James Breeding special, given the double tech. I just feel like double tech should not be allowed. If the answer to the situation is double techs, just move on. Especially in that case, it was.
I agree. Either you tee up the aggressor or no blood, no foul. Yeah. And that the two of them were just talking to each other. That didn't merit a technical foul. In a game that was that physical, in what we're trying to tab as a rivalry game, you got to just let them go.
Absolutely. Then there's the play you mentioned, another great look from Julius out of the middle of the floor. Looked like Maryland was trying to run a little bit of a zone, but it just was a very, very weak zone. He gets it to a cutting Isaiah Abraham. I'm sorry, he gets it to Isaiah Abraham in the corner for a three that he misses on that one, comes back and then gets the dunk from Julius to Caleb off the baseline. The three, I think, was interesting to me because that's the shot that I think you want Isaiah really making. And that's probably the difference between him playing 18 minutes, which he played last night, and 25 plus, because he's looked really good. But that shot is one that you need him to make consistently if he's going to play a lot.
I love that shot, no matter who's taking it. If there was a negative yesterday, it was creating shots out of the half court. And or quality ones at least. And when they did get Julius the ball, they created good ones, and they don't get much better than that. Just a wide open corner three. And on Isaiah, I like his role, kind of how it is. He's kind of owning that starting spot. You know, probably trust him a little less to finish the game. You know, where they probably play a little bit smaller with Jeremiah out there. But just when they start him and they slide KJ down into the backcourt, they're so big and physical and athletic. Big. Yesterday they played 28 possessions with Caleb and Isaiah together, big front court, and it was 34-14 in 28 possessions. So they were allowing half a point per possession. They were plus 20. They just totally kicked ass.
Isaiah does a lot of just winning things on the floor. I'm a big fan. Right after that, you get the J. Will block on the three, which to me was just kind of, again, a story of the game, is that these guys challenging, even when they're beat, getting back out to 3-point shooters, they are in their face. He gets the run out and Rice takes him down. I get why it's not a flagrant. It wasn't a flagrant, but
it should have been a flagrant.
I hate that play. That play.
On Rice, I mean, he did what he was supposed to. Just no easy baskets there. But that from Jeremiah was my favorite play of the entire game. Jeremiah didn't, 2 points, 2 assists, fouls out, but it was an impactful 2 points, 2 assists, where just he made it hard for the opponents. He got screwed on the officiating. I think
Yeah.
like three of those were nothing. But they were, at that point, they were having a hard time generating looks. The lead started to feel like it was dwindling a little bit. And not only did that negate a quality look that Maryland could have created, but was just, the most simple of 2 points going the other way, which is what they really need. They need these transition opportunities, which is why KJ was going to be so important, because he's a one-man fast break.
Yep.
But when they get out and run, it's for the best.
Yep. 2 Hoyas foul out in this one, Jeremiah and Julius, and I thought they both at least got a little bit screwed on their last foul call. So Jeremiah, later on, I won't mention it, but they're playing, this is after Julius fouls out, they're playing small and putting up a fight against Payne, and Jeremiah comes over the top, blocks his looks like he got it clean. If it's a foul
Yeah.
on anybody, it's not Jeremiah. But they call it on him. And then Julius down on the other end fouls out on what should have been an offensive foul. Payne just rams him in the jaw with his elbow. Julius gets fouled as he comes down on the ball after that. But that's an offensive foul. He got absolutely clocked by Payne on that one. So
Yeah. I like Julius fouling out of that game, though. Like,
yeah,
he had to show that he was ready for it. And you have Vince there as an alternative. And it honestly wasn't the worst thing that they had to play the last 3 minutes of the game with neither of them and figure out some sort of solution there.
yeah.
Whether that was like the minute they went to Fort defensively, or when they went Caleb small ball 5 when they were breaking the press. And I feel better about the 5 rotation than I did 2 months ago.
For sure. At this point, we've got about 5 minutes left, 4 or 5 minutes left. Maryland makes their last run here. KJ throws it away. Maryland cuts it to 8 with 5 minutes left. Maybe the momentum's starting to shift, but KJ comes down and knocks down just an absolute dagger 3. Huge shot. And he's walking back telling everybody to calm down. This to me is like the epitome of the difference between this team and teams past. Is KJ is not a good 3-point shooter. Maybe he'll become one, but the ability to step up and knock down a shot when you need it is something that they absolutely have. And that was the massive shot of the game for him. Maryland kind of back and forth, gets it to 7. Then another great play from KJ, the dish down to Caleb for another dunk at the rim, back to 9. Then Maryland sort of last gasp. They get Mack to miss kind of an easy-ish layup, but he gets the rebound, sort of dribbles around and then nails a 3, back to 10.
Another huge shot.
Yeah.
He needed to make the layup, but huge shot.
Yeah. Vince cramping, no Julius, Fort to close. Fort gets hit in the eye or the face. I'm not sure sort of what happened there, but they finish it defensively and going away with this one 70-60, but it was never really that close. What a game.
What a game. I think, I know we've kind of been hedging our bets here a little bit and pretty cautious about asserting that this team was ready for it, although trying to be pretty optimistic that things were looking up. That's how I was hoping that game looked like. And they really asserted themselves. It makes me feel like, this team has to start thinking NCAA tournament.
100%.
They're up for it if they stay healthy and if they continue to execute, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and for me, this is just the culmination of everything that we've talked about it, and Coach Cooley has been talking about, which is their preparation all summer was to get to this point early in the year where they were in third gear, maybe fourth gear, and Maryland is barely into second, if that. And, there's people who will say, well, that means Maryland, that's a mitigating factor. Georgetown may not be that good. I think that's BS. These games count. That works in the exhibition, but these games count. And to me, Cooley had his guys ready to go, ready to play, and Buzz didn't. I mean, his team was not on the floor for the first 3 minutes. They go down 11-0, and that's the margin of victory of this game. That might have been the difference right there. Georgetown was ready to punch first, and Maryland wasn't.
100% was the difference that they got a chance to play with a 10 to 20 point buffer for much of the game, just because they asserted themselves off the jump. I had a friend text me saying, you're on game 68 of this coaching staff at this school. They're on game 2. that game was a culture game. Halftime, it was low scoring slugfest. The more ingrained culture was going to win that game, which it felt like that we were more aware and more true to the type of team that we wanted to be than Maryland was. And yeah, we've talked about it that, you go to Canada and you go play at GW and you go play at Rupp so that you were ready 4 days into the season to go to College Park. And
Yeah.
they were ready. So that's why you try to get these guys battle tested beforehand.
We've talked about a couple of these, but what's your biggest takeaway from this one overall?
I think it's just how optimistic I am about that 5 rotation. If the two of them stay healthy together, that they provide enough of an anchor defensively. Neither of them got a ton of rebounds, but again, they made it difficult for Maryland on the offensive glass so that the team itself could gang rebound. KJ ends up with 9, Caleb ends up with 10, cleaning up a lot of just scraps.
Mack with an 8.
Yeah, there you go. That's you held Maryland to, I think it was 27% of an offensive rebounding rate. With Buzz's teams, it's just going to be, we're going to try to turn you over and we're going to try to create second looks on the offensive glass. They really held their own against a really legit 5. You're not going to play centers in the Big East much better than Pharrell Payne outside of the guys at the top, like Terrace and Zuby. And I'm just really encouraged that I don't think that the two of them, Julius and Vince, lower the ceiling of this team all that much.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ceiling on this team ends up depending on how much they get offensively, especially shooting from the perimeter and like what Mack becomes.
Yeah, I'm with you. The five rotation is one of my biggest takeaways too. And it's striking to me how different their two guys are and the ability, and usually that can prove to be kind of difficult for the guys around them to adapt. But and I think this is all about the preparation and the coaching to get this team to this point. They look really comfortable with either of them. But
Yeah.
I've got a take after rewatching this game that I think I'm ready to uncork. I think Julius is coming. I think he's close to really breaking out. And the reason I say that is I was really nervous for how he would look in the Kentucky game and this Maryland game, specifically after Canada, because he just didn't look like physically he was there yet. And he's looked great defensively. I mean, we'll talk about it. And you mentioned they were better with Julius on the floor defensively. The offense is coming. He's getting more comfortable and looking like he's getting comfortable on that end. You saw the couple of the 4 assists he had. The dishes were there. I think he's starting to figure it out. And my sense is that he is close. Still hasn't hit a 3 as a Georgetown Hoya. I think in the next two games, that's going to happen.
I think he hit 1 or 2 last year.
Before he got hurt? Yeah, maybe.
I think
right.
so. But
it was maybe 1.
I still am a little apprehensive that, the total package comes together this year, that it might be one more offseason to really maybe pack on 15 of those pounds that he lost, but this time around in muscle. But I think he's a type of guy that, he's a de facto freshman. This is his second high major game ever. And the first was a cup of coffee in that Notre Dame game last year. He's, with more reps, the game will slow down. He's the type of offensive player that if it slows down, he's going to make the correct play every single time. And with more reps against some of these bigger physical centers where he understands what he can get away with and what he can't, I agree with you to some extent that I think he's going to be just fine this year, and at some point in his career is going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
But I think it's next year. But I still think he's a solid player all this year.
It's very possible. I think he's coming. I think we're going to see a big one from him. My guess, if I have to predict, I think we're going to see the Julius game come in the MTE in Florida. I think he's going to have a good little stretch here against Binghamton and then look good against Clemson, and then he's going to figure it out. I mean, I would say maybe Dayton, probably not against BYU, just because if they get to BYU, you've got KB Keita, who is just an absolute monster and is going to run through anybody else who's on the floor. But I think Julius is coming. And the biggest thing that I see that you mentioned is the game's slowing down for him. It is starting to to slow down a bit, and he's able to make the reads that he was making a little bit in the FIBA tournament towards the end of that, where he started looking really, really good on offense. I think it's coming.
Yeah, I felt okay about him offensively in Canada. It was more so just like activity on the glass and how he reacted to any sort of physical challenge in the post. Both Nwako for Canada and the Cardoso kid for Brazil pushed him around a bit. And it just looks like he's allowing himself to be pushed around a lot better. And you've made note of it in the past. He's moving pretty well.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot better than we saw when he was playing last year. So he just got to keep growing, stacking days, stacking weeks, getting experience coming into his body, and in time, I'm sure he's going to figure it out. I'd be a little nervous about the Clemson front court.
Gotcha.
They're big and strong, and they're going to bring your style back to your feet. They're going to try to play like us with a pretty defensive first, athletic backcourt, and with a lot of strong guys on the back end. I guess this is kind of the forum to talk about it before then, but Godfrey, who was on their team 2 years prior when they made the Elite Eight run, plus Nick Davidson is a pretty talented front court. The kid that came over from Utah Valley, I'm blanking on his name right now, was that conference's defensive player of the year. So they're going to have a couple people in that front court that are a challenge. So again, just more data points, more experience for Julius and for Vince in this role. And we just have to hope that it keeps looking like it did at Kentucky and at Maryland.
Yep. Other big takeaways that you had in this one?
KJ's awesome. He's so good. And
good.
it's like, it's a little different than Micah. I don't think it's going to be maybe as efficient on the offensive end, but he does exactly what this team needs. He's a perimeter stopper defensively. He's a one-man fast break, like I said earlier. When he gets 9 rebounds like that, plus however many steals he stacks on top of it, he grabs that ball and goes. And he creates these number mismatches all on his own. He did it a couple times, especially in that second half. He's a pick six artist like Micah. Like you said, he made the big shot. And what I'm most excited about, and this goes for most of the team, he lives at the line.
Yeah.
Top 5 percentile in his career the past 2 years at free throw rate. This team's going to allow him to get downhill. And this team, again, there was an article on Basket Under Review, which was pretty good, where the guy discussed that Cooley's decent offensive teams of the past, because he's never really been a great offensive coach. His decent offensive teams of the past hit the offensive glass to generate second looks and really got to the line. That they were all like top 125 in the country in both whenever they had a top 60 offense. Now, last year, they just didn't get to the line. They were, I think, bottom 20 in the country. They had one guy over 30% free throw rate, which was Sorber. And all the guys they brought in the portal get to the line. Vince has a career like 46% free throw rate. And, we've seen through 2 games that he lives at the line and that he can make his free throws, which is a nice novelty. AJ's right around 46 to 48% for his career, which is crazy. And, if he plays, this higher usage, higher volume, higher minutes role, he's going to be shooting 8 free throws a game. And so that's 5 to 7 points right there. DHS has been pretty solid at getting to the line in his career. Jeremiah has. Mack was really good at Harvard. Took a 15% step back last year, but it looks like he's getting back there this year where he's being a little more aggressive downhill. And they shot 31 free throws. They have to keep doing that because they're just probably not going to be efficient enough on jump shots in the half court. But KJ is just a perfect fit for what they're trying to do. God bless Micah Peavy. God bless David Peavy. God bless Ed Cooley. That's such a haul. We're going to look back, who knows we have him for 1 year, 2 years, but I think the fan base is going to look back in extreme fondness of that kid.
Yeah. You heard Cooley on John Rothstein's podcast yesterday morning before the game, talking a little bit about KJ and saying he makes a lot of aggressive mistakes, which are mistakes that you can live with. And there were a couple of those, but I think it's a really, really good description of what he brings. Is he's going to make impactful plays more often than not, that you live with the 1 or 2 or 3. He's got 4 turnovers in this one. I'll live with that any day.
Yeah.
Any day.
I think Arizona fans kind of had a love-hate relationship with him. And I think a lot of it had to do with that he definitely wasn't their best offensive option, that they were loaded with guys, and that he did try to kind of, make those aggressive mistakes. But in this situation, the alternative might be nothing. So
Yeah.
you need him to play like a bat out of hell and just constantly get downhill, make those mistakes. And if, last night was probably a sloppy game of his, but if sloppy KJ is 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists, that's so good.
Yeah. Early in the year, I'm also really, really intrigued by the sort of fit between him and Malik. They bring in Williams to play with each of them as well, and that looks solid, but it can't be overstated how much KJ fits with Malik more than, say, a Jaden Epps. His ability to get downhill, get to the line, but get to the basket opens things way up for Malik to come in behind. I really like the way that they look as a duo.
I can emphasize that 100 times. Such a better fit alongside Mack than Epps. That we don't have two small guards in the backcourt. That it's pretty clear that it's Malik's ball offensively in the half court, and that KJ is more so the one to pick his spots. They totally complement each other in terms of maybe finesse versus physicality, size versus speed, let's say,
Yeah.
Malik, although KJ's the fastest kid out there on the court. Yeah, I really like the two of them playing together. Whenever they go, those two with Caleb and Isaiah, plus a big, I think it's just like a really complementary physical lineup.
Yeah. Let's talk about Caleb. I mean, it's interesting that, there's the depth on this team continues to pop, but this was, at least in the second half, Caleb Williams is probably Georgetown's most complete player on the floor. 3 fouls in the first half, a couple of bad ones, and he ends the game with 3 fouls, which I think is huge. He doesn't foul in the second half, and he was massive. Only 1 for 2 from 3, but getting 2 shots inside the arc as well. What did you see from Caleb?
He's really grown up. He's made, there's been a lot of physical maturation in the last year. He's calm as all hell.
Yeah.
And everything was kind of getting a little chaotic at the end of the game there. He's just, blank face, expressionless, like he's playing a pickup game. And just, he plays up to his strengths. He doesn't do anything that he can't do. And what this team's going to ask of him is to be a spacer at times offensively, but he's kind of like the garbage man too. He picks up these loose balls and kind of those half spaces, and he finishes over the rim really nice. He missed one of them on the putback where Julius missed the bunny too, which that was a little bit of an infuriating possession, but he's been so good through a 2-week stretch now, if you consider the exhibitions, at making some of those intermediate shots. And then defensively, he's just, he physically fits in with the guys, and they really appreciate his activity on the glass, especially those rebounds that have get tipped a couple times. He's just a pretty quick second jumper. He's always in good position. He's got strong hands. He did everything that you could ask him yesterday. I imagine if you ask people around the country, who would look more superior in a matchup between him and Elijah Saunders, they're going to pick the guy that played for San Diego State and was a 10-plus point per game guy in the ACC last year.
Yep.
And he kicked Saunders' ass. He was much the better player.
Yep. The rebounding is big because, as we've noted a lot, and you saw in this game, the bigs are not themselves individually great rebounders, but they lend themselves to being very solid team rebounders, and that they will put a body on somebody and maybe not go get the ball, but the ball is up for grabs, and you need guys on your team to go in and grab the ball. And Caleb is that. I think he's going to have a lot of these big rebound games because there's just more opportunities there. So he gets his first career double-double, and
the other team missed 40 shots.
There's going to be a lot of balls coming off the rim for sure. Also, that floater that he's developed looks really, really nice. That looks pretty automatic, which is I think if you're going to be a really, really good shooter in college, you need that secondary, either the ability to attack a closeout and get to a second shot. And the fact that he's so comfortable with that floater, really with both hands, is really impressive.
Yeah, and he can put it on the deck a little bit, especially if it's like a head fake into 2 dribbles to his left where he gets to that floater. And I like that he's such a smart player. He knows he doesn't need to get all the way to the rim. He knows he just needs to get to that 7 feet, and it's a really high percentage shot. I like that he tries to dunk things.
Yeah.
Last year, he probably attempted a couple that he had no business attempting. But it's nice when we have a little dump off pass on the baseline that our front court now just dunks the basketball. And yeah, he's made a ton of physical maturation. He's such a smart player. We know he's a good shooter. We know he's a good defender. We know he's a good rebounder. The adult version of him when he's 22 is going to be awesome. And he feels like a kid that might be a one program player, which is rare nowadays. Just, you can't say enough good things about Caleb Williams.
No, and you mentioned early on, I think it's worth noting is I've been really liking the Williams-Abraham starting front court because they're both low mistake guys who are going to make a lot of plays that help you get into a game, and they take smart shots overall, shots that they know that they can make. Have really liked the sort of way that they look early in the game. And again, to me, this is just an indication of Ed Cooley having a really good feel for his team. I mean, like Isaiah Abraham starting, even in the role that he's playing now, was not on anybody's radar coming into this year.
He still feels like he's probably the 7th or 8th man. It's just, I agree with you. I like that they start big, physical, in control. They hold teams to one shot. It's a good way to establish what you're trying to do on a given night. And it also gives Isaiah a chance to he kind of has this built-in run out when he gets the first 4 minutes of each half. And then you can kind of determine from there how much he's going to play or as compared to how much you want to play smaller with either a DHS or a Jeremiah. Yeah. And Cooley, you trust him in those situations. He's definitely got a finger on the pulse of this group. If we're taking the exhibition games for what let's say they're worth a lot now because you just kicked Maryland's ass. He's made the right calls through 3 weeks or 2-3 weeks.
Other takeaways from you, I will say one from me was that you got a Big Ten whistle in this game with some Big Ten refs.
Yeah,
we talked about James Breeding. I just the difference between the Big Ten whistle, I was talking to a friend about this, and the Big East whistle is not that there is, the physicality is there in both leagues, but the Big Ten whistle is all just every little ticky-tack little thing gets called. And it's
both
just
ways too. There should never be a college basketball game in which you shoot 68 free throws across both teams. This is why people complain that college basketball is a bad product. It's not the TV timeouts or the coaches calling a bunch of timeouts. It's that every hand check gets punished. The loose ball fouls on these rebounds. You got to let these kids play. They're all 6'6", 220 pounds. It's bad basketball to watch when both teams are just living at the free throw line.
Yeah. And in the Big East, you'll get some big calls that get missed. In the Big Ten, it seems the approach is to call everything, so they miss absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Both have their frustrations, but I'll take the Big East whistle for sure.
We've got to hope that we're not getting officiated so ticky-tacky, because that's what's going to hurt us in some of these games is if a team scores 35 points from the line, which, Maryland scored, 30? And it still didn't matter? Yeah, they scored 30 from the
37.
line.
They only missed 7 free throws.
Yeah, I don't know how Buzz fixed Payne's free throw, but commend him on that. He's a career 50% free throw shooter, and he's 25 of 27 this year.
13 of 15 last night.
Yeah, and he was 9 of 9 in night one. Yeah, they got to let him play.
Yeah.
And then if we want to do one last takeaway, which is he's kind of been the topic of conversation for the majority of the offseason. I didn't love Malik's game.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But if marginal Malik is 19 points and 3 big shots in the second half and you win the game and he plays good defense, that's a huge upgrade over what he was last year. I'd still say he's really close because, 5 of 14 doesn't look great, but 1 or 2 of those go down and you've got a 25-point game on efficient shooting. I just didn't love, we've talked about his process, how he handles the pick and roll, what type of quality of shots they're generating on offense. I didn't love some of it. He took a couple transition looks where I thought he should have dished it. He took a couple threes really early in the shot clock, which maybe Cooley saying you're our guy. Just if you have air to breathe, it's, you got the green light. But I think he needed to have a little bit more feel of the game that, you're nursing this 10 to 14 point lead. The last thing you need is bad shots 3 seconds into the shot clock. And then that's essentially all I was going there. He had 1 assist. It was on the first play of the game. And
Yeah.
oh, this is the last thing I want to touch upon. There was a stretch in the first half where, we were kicking their ass and then we kind of let them get it back to 5 or 7 for the last 6 minutes of that half. We did nothing in the half court.
Yeah.
We weren't even trying to penetrate the 3-point line until like 10 seconds left in the shot clock. And I think a lot of that falls on Malik's feet. Maybe it's coming from the staff, that the staff needs to be more hyper focused on getting them into sets that get these guys moving and especially get your scores downhill. But it's a losing proposition if you are dribbling the basketball for 20 seconds and then ask Malik to break down a pick and roll with 6 or 7 seconds left when the other team's playing this high hedge with an athletic five. They were never going to generate good looks that way.
Yeah.
And I just want him to be more of a point guard in those moments where you just play with a little bit more urgency, or even just, in those type of moments, I wouldn't mind it just him handing the ball off to KJ or Jeremiah or Deshaun, and they initiate, and he just becomes a wing scorer. But I'm sure that that's just, second week of the season kinks, and that the staff's going to figure out how to put these pieces together offensively. But Malik wasn't perfect, but he's improved and he's close.
Yeah. I think this is a really good point to kind of close out on, because I had the same reaction. It was not a good Malik game, but that actually was really encouraging to me, because you get a bad Malik game last year and it looks a lot worse than it did from a personal stat line perspective, and also they probably lose. And in this one, you get kind of an iffy one, and he goes for 19 points, 8 boards. The one assist, I think, is right, and that to me is the biggest thing, that he's just got to find those passes as opposed to looking for a shot in places. And we talked about a couple of those. Yeah, the transition threes are tough for me, because he made one early in the second half that was big.
Yeah, it was huge.
Huge shot.
All three he made in the second half were at critical times, whether you were expanding a lead or kind of stopping the bleeding.
So I don't want to take that shot away from him completely, but I do think this team is a much better shooting team, as most teams are, but them in particular, when they get inside out threes from penetration, ball touching the paint, and then getting kicked out, I'd rather they hold on to that. But there were, so you take away two, he goes 3 for 9 from 3. 2 of those were heat checks that sort of go in and out. Those are fine for me. It's the couple that were in transition, that just a quick trigger on those, that I think you want to cut out. And I think, as you noted, when the offense got stagnant, it was they just didn't get their bigs moving and the spacing right, and they go to Malik late in the shot clock, going down into a pull up or a runner, and I think they just got to be prepared to reset, get their bigs up for a quick ball screen, and play out of that. And I think your point about maybe that's a place where you go to KJ, put Malik off ball, and get him some spot up threes that he can step into, because that's the shot that looks almost automatic to me, which is a big difference than last year. Is if he's got a little bit of airspace and is stepping into a shot, it looks pure.
Yeah. You can utilize Julius too. Those pocket passes are a high hedge breaker. And I'm sure that what you see in Malik is going to be probably some happy medium between this game and the Kentucky game. And it's going to be a really good player. Said preseason, I think he ends up on an all Big East team, and I'll stick with that.
He's trending that way for sure.
But yeah, pretty much encouraged top to bottom on the roster, encouraged with what the depth looks like, encouraged with what the 5 rotation looks like, encouraged with just the recipe for success, that this isn't a team that, maybe it is a team that requires some make or miss luck offensively, but what the style that they're going to play is going to travel. It's something that's repeatable on a nightly basis, and you're going to force opposing teams to have to match your physicality and really execute their stuff on the offensive end and really show up prepared to beat you at your game, which is, it's very fun to root for a team that brings it like this, and that stylistically is a tough group of kids. So it's kind of what we predicted, talked about this offseason. I think Cooley's really harnessed it, and I'm really, really excited for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's a really fun team. I'm hopeful and excited for the students to get a chance to really see this team. I think Clemson is going to be a big one for that because it's a
Yeah,
fun team to root for. And they've got some guys who will get into you, obviously. You've got some quiet guys in Malik and Julius, but Jay Will and KJ Lewis and DHS, Caleb, these guys are, I mean, when they would go to the free throw line, you could just see Rice and Payne with this expression and trying to like talk back to Georgetown, and they just looked like they were a little bit shook. I will say, last note, this is, according to Ken Pom, this is Georgetown's best regular season win since the 2021 season. Their road win against Creighton. I think we all remember that one where Patrick Ewing and that ragtag group of scrappy Big East champions, mind you, walk into Creighton.
There was nobody in the gym. It
was empty. Still won at Creighton.
It was 17,000 empty seats.
That was they beat a 22 ranked or a Ken Pom ranked 22 ranked Creighton. This is the best win Georgetown has had, according to Ken Pom, since then. Their first A-rated win in 5 years.
Yeah,
altogether, just a really, really impressive showing from Georgetown. And they go get Binghamton coming into town next Wednesday. Binghamton, a 340 ranked Ken Pom team. They got waxed by Syracuse. That's one that I expect to be a little bit sloppy. I expect it to look more like the Morgan State game than anything, but we'll see. And then, as you said, we've already started to preview it a little bit, but you got Clemson next week, a week from today on Saturday. A big one that I think is the next biggest game of their season.
Yeah, I think two things here. One, we're rooting for Maryland the rest of the season. Yep. You want that to be a quad one win if you're on the bubble. I have a suspicion that Maryland ends up like a 75 Ken Pom team and not a 35 Ken Pom team. But maybe, Solomon Washington might come back in a couple of weeks and they're going to look a lot different, hopefully in 3 months than they do right now. But you got them at the right time. And then secondly, yeah, the Clemson, we said the Maryland game was the biggest game of the season. If you're serious about the tournament, now it becomes the Clemson game, where you need 9 wins non-conference to, really have a good chance. And this is probably the next easiest one of those non-bye games. And I hope that everybody that's local to the DMV region that's listening goes.
We got to get out for that one, yeah.
It's a Saturday game. The team deserves a good showing. And if you get the students in the seats, if you get 10 to 12,000 fans there and you hopefully play to your ability that you played yesterday and win another one, then you get some momentum, keep it rolling. Really like to be undefeated heading into that MT8. Then you got a chance to make some national waves.
Yep. And that is another quad one game against Clemson, who is 22 on Ken Pom. They will not face anybody of serious note before Georgetown. So big chance there. Georgetown jumps up from 90th to 69. Nice little Ken Pom bump there for Georgetown.
Nice. The last thing with the Ken Pom and the metrics right now, they're going to use net rankings for these quads. Yeah. You're not going to know for a long time. Clemson's not the 22nd best team in the country. That's going to end up being a quad 2, if not a quad 3 game if Clemson doesn't have a great year. And Ken Pom, it's going to take a month and a half to bake out his preseason predictions into that algorithm. But man, you just held Maryland to 0.85 points per possession. That national defensive ranking should be a good one in a couple months' time.
Yep, already up to top 50. I expect that to go much higher. We'll see. We'll see how high it goes. I'll be interested to see how they look against a scrappy Clemson team that I think you make a good point is going to bring the game you're playing right back to your feet in that one.
Yeah. So yeah, you got to match their physicality. The one thing I feel pretty optimistic about is I don't know if their guards have the shot making capabilities to bail them out if we're forcing them into these tough mid ranges or these late clock step back threes. Much to the similarity that Maryland's guards are. Although Maryland's guards probably have a better shot making pedigree in their career, and you made a lot of them look like not high major players. Yeah, I imagine this group's going to come hungry, come prepared, come ready.
We'll leave it there. Just a massive win for Georgetown. Again, they hold Maryland to 13 made field goals on the game. I'm not a math guy, but Jake, that's good, right? That
Yeah,
13 that's good. Yeah.
I think you'd have to go a long time back to see us hold a high major team to 13 field goals.
An all-around impressive win. Exciting. Georgetown sits in an exciting spot. We'll have more coverage from the finger wag. Look for more pod breakdown as we get into the Clemson game, and hopefully should have some more photos. We've got a official finger wag photographer, Daniel Rankin, alum, who is going to be shooting some photo for us from games. So look for that on the site as well. Excited to have that to feature. Hoya Saxa. Great weekend.
Yeah, hope everybody had a great Friday night watching that game. Hope everybody enjoys the pod, and Hoya Sacks, everybody.